paint making is a really, really, really old craft, really, human craft. And I think it developed not so much to express ourselves creatively, but to feed our need for protection. So you can use a covering over yourself to camouflage or to look like a predator. And indeed, the oldest paint we have is on cave walls, where we generally were making representations of animals that would predate us, but also animals probably that we would predate to give us a meat source to stay alive. And so I think that actually paint has always had that protective role. It's just that it's morphed into the only thing we care about is colour. I believe a layer of paint should be as proactive as a line render or a well-chosen membrane or whatever. And that although the consumer perhaps doesn't have that awareness, I think paint has the capacity to do three types of protection. The first is to protect the building that it's applied to. The second is to do it in such a way that it protects the occupants of the building. And the third is to do it in such a way that it also protects our planetary home. The thing about paint making is that up until 100 years ago, it was effectively done by artisans and for artisans. So you bought the constituents of your paint to make your colour, you buy the pigments, and then you bought the medium in which to put those pigments. And so it was talked about in many ways, you know, objective, but also subjective. And in the last 100 years, we've effectively kind of resigned that artisan side of paint making to the chemical industry. So it's produced by chemists, it's produced by large industrial concerns. And weirdly, although a similar industrial concern might be giving you an air freshener, and they'll talk about, you know, it being Glade fresh and giving you images of pine forest, paint making is at totally the other end of the spectrum. They tell you nothing. They might tell you that it's water-based because you'll take away from that water. Water's safe, water's the most natural thing in the world, that's fine. But they do not trumpet the high level of chemistry that goes in to making a tin of paint. And the way we make it is still based on chemistry, but we call it gentle chemistry. So in effect, there's no process we use that wouldn't be used by a professional chef. You know, emulsifying, heating, cooling, adding water. And it's therefore much more understandable. And the ingredients we use are also meaningful because they're based on plants or minerals that, you know, we've had association with for, well, all those thousands of years that we've been making paint. So for us, talking about the chemistry, talking about the ingredients we use is what we want you, the consumer, to hear and to register, because if you focus on what something is made of, you can make your own judgment as to whether that's going to make me feel safer. Paint is in a very dishonest relationship with humankind. We expect humanity and the planet actually to absorb a great deal of cost in order for a paint to come in a plastic tub probably to your door. And it's just assumed that we, the taxpayer, or we, the inhabitor of the degraded environment, will just put up with that because it's what everyone else does. It's very strange that the precautionary principle, which kind of should drive government, who are effectively charged with keeping us safe and building a fairer and better society, that health, that protection of the environment does not seem to really figure. And even now, you know, the unequivocal body of science is telling us that effectively we are heading to a place where it's possible humans could no longer survive. They're still not engaging with it. And I think that a lot of that comes down to business system. You know, it's at worst it's criminal, but I think mainly it's corrupt because we are corrupted in our systems to think that good governance relies on, you know, to profits, returning shareholder value, growing your business and knocking, anyone else out of the water, even though they might have been giving a better option to the consumer. And we're all corrupted in that way. And we've come to think that the ultimate judge of everything is financial. And of course, that's why we've got into the trouble we've got, because we've replaced ecology with economy. The first shift in thinking, I think, is in the person who's attempting to make a profit. What am I selling to you? Why do I think you'll buy it? And so, of course, you look at why people already buy something similar. So in our case, most people buy paint based on a colour choice. So we launched into the market on that basis. We mixed a range of colours, and they're beautiful colours. I'm an interior designer. I know what colours work. And we've built from there. But all along, we've tried to be explicit about our ecological credentials. But you can do an Instagram post about that and get a fraction of the interest and engagement that you can with a picture of a beautiful room. So we know very clearly what engages the public, and you have to embrace that. You can't judge it. And I think that I remember as a child, I was told, don't care was made to care. When I said, don't care. And I think that's the problem, is that we actually have not been made to care. I mean, people like David Attenborough are singular in really trying to help us understand the wonders of the natural world and how we utterly base our survival on their survival. But very few politicians ever do that. A small Swedish girl did a good job at finding a voice on it, but it's not seen yet to be a vote winner. It's not yet seen to be something that you do other than when you've got enough money to do it. So we've still got all the wrong drivers, and remarkably, survival is not one of them. So when I talk in that way, I'm addressing the issue because it's in the room with us now. But in talking to our customers or potential customers, we just put ourselves in their place. We've tried to become one of the family. And ultimately, you do want to keep your family safe. And the chances are you probably have got a child who's got some eczema or, tickly cough or something. We've certainly got lots of customers who have buildings, old buildings, that they have been informed enough about to understand they need to be breathable, for instance. So there's a creeping level of information, and we think it's our job to add to that, because government has abdicated responsibility. The press has actually gone in the other direction. And funnily enough, education systems are not great. I mean, we engage with primary school education, and these kids they have such brain power, such processing power, such spontaneous reaction to nature, because we always do the work outside. We've got to start it there, and I think a lot of people think that, but we should have done it my generation. But what happens after that? Secondary school, I suspect it largely goes away. It's not cool, it's not on telly, it's not talked about. Maybe in further education, if you choose a silo, you can learn about environment. But and it's too often I found myself in a room with consultants, and in the building area, you're always up against specifications and certification, and lots of very brilliant people telling you about how systems could be better engineered. And I went along with that and worked in a sustainability charity for 10 years. But ultimately, I felt that it does come down to every single person doing what they think they can do, knowing that it's not enough. But if enough of us do it, there's a chance it might be. And as an interior designer, I was doing very high-end work. Most of my clients are, if you like, more part of the problem than part of the solution. But I felt that's where I could have some agency, because I do understand colour. And ultimately, if someone is just buying a polluting paint because it's a nice colour, maybe that's something that I can lean into and give them a nice colour with a solution to pollution.